Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. I'm glad to welcome you to session 75 about open educational resources. And our speakers are Rebecca Wulf. She's worked for Amatyc since 2007, primarily in the Academic Skills Advancement and Math Department. She's a bachelor's from Purdue University in Secondary Math Ed and a master's in Math. Rebecca is program chair for the Academic Skills Advancement Math, served as co-chair of statewide ASA Math Curriculum Committee and vice chair of the Regional Faculty Advising Committee. Rebecca presented at Amatyc's 2011 conference too. Sharon Koch has been teaching for 15 years, including 5 years at Amatyc Gary and 5 years at Purdue Calumet. Sharon was part of Indiana Mathematics Initiative, which incorporated more student-centered instruction for grades 8 through 12. She's the Liberal Arts Math Program Chair for Amatyc's Gary region. Sharon has also presented at NCTM, the National Middle School Association National Conference. Sharon has a bachelor's degree in biology, a master's in education, and elementary teaching certificate with a math endorsement. Ben Markham is the Math and Science Program Chair for Amatyc Bloomington, and he has his degrees from Indiana University. So I want to welcome these folks this morning and let them get ready to work. One item of business, evaluating the session. Well, there's a few chairs up front. Come on in so we can see the New Orleans best. There are a few more seats. Come on in. For evaluations, I'm sure you've heard this before in other sessions. If you have the conference app on your telephone, on your smartphone, you may just go to this session in the program, scroll down, and use that to evaluate. However, if you do choose to use the app, you have to complete that evaluation of this session by 5 p.m. today because we daily pull the data off. You have an option of the paper form though, so if you would like a paper form, I'll just kind of move from here toward the back and you can raise your hand and I'll give you a paper form. If you want to fill this out, or I'll just put a few on each table. Fill this out and give it back to me at the end of the session. So we'll go ahead and let these folks get back to the
Thank you for coming this morning. In addition to other duties at Amatyc, I am also the Math 123 statewide lead, and so that is the book that we've helped write, our own book for this course. We wanted to talk a little bit about that today. And much like the course itself, I think we'll let you lead where our presentation goes based on what information you would like more about. For those who aren't familiar, some are familiar faces already from Amatyc. Amatyc is Indiana's community college, and so it's a challenge sometimes because we are one college, yet we are 14 regions with many campuses across the state. So sometimes it's difficult to have consistency across the courses when you're covering such a wide area. And Amatyc goes back and forth with being the largest school with IU in the state as well, serving many, many students. I'm sure like many of your colleges, over the last couple of years we've been redesigning our math pathways. I'm sure there's lots of presentations about that at Amatyc as well. So Amatyc ended up with 3 pathways, and the one that we're really focused on is the middle pathway, and it's liberal arts math. So we created this quantitative reasoning course. There was already a liberal arts math course, concepts in mathematics, but we had an opportunity to look at it and redesign it and build something else. It also has a unique remediation piece where students take the remediation at the same time that they take the 100 level math course. 123 is a 3-credit hour, 4 contact hour course. So one of the things we wanted to talk about a little bit was that it's a different kind of math course. The previous concepts in math course I always thought sounded good in theory. But yeah, all the math that people need to know sounds good. That's not what that course was. It was lots of random topics with no connection. The students might be doing geometry one day, algebra the next, compound interest the next day. There was no connection between the topics. So we wanted to make this really the math they would need to know. And we wanted to also have a structure that was very student-centered, problem-based, and that's where some of Ben and Sharon's expertise came in. One positive thing about Amatyc being many different campuses was we were able to pull from many different campuses. And basically, in the summer of 2013, they sequestered us in a hotel room in Indianapolis, literally. Brought in a consultant, the Dana Center helped us as well. And we made this decision that summer that we weren't happy with the existing quantitative reasoning textbooks, because actually there aren't a lot of quantitative reasoning textbooks. Now Sharon, you were part of the pilot.
I was part of
originally used it.
Right. We used a book in the beginning, but it just wasn't meeting the needs or our vision of what we thought the course should be. So that one summer we pretty much sat down and it was a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I mean over a 2-day period, I passed out kind of our course objectives. We decided if we were happy with what those were, we've adjusted them a couple times since then. We put together a rough syllabus, and we literally wrote the material as we went during the next semester. We were sometimes a couple weeks ahead. Sometimes we were harassing people like, could you hurry up and send in the homework for next week for our students? You know, at other schools, I guess you might get a sabbatical and a year off to write a textbook. We wrote ours on the fly. Since then, we put together all of our material, and this is what we ended up with. This is the instructor's version. We basically went to a publishing company, and they published it for us. The cost to our students, a $25 fee. So much, much cheaper than the other math books that are out there. The other nice thing, the reason this has sticky notes all over it, this is the corrections book. I'm working right now on getting corrections made, adding things, moving things around. Our publisher will totally print us a new version next semester. Next semester we'll have a prepared version for our students. Because another part of the course deals with real life applications. It's nice when you can pull something out of the news and use it in class. Now we can include that in our textbook. You know, the story problems don't say, in 1990, you know, we can go, oh, in 2014, we can get the new data for this. We can tell you what the federal debt is right now, today, and have that in the book for next semester. So it's only 3 to 6 months behind instead of 6 years behind. So that's been a really important part of the course.
Right. We pretty much consider this a living document, and it's going to continue to grow, and it's going to be as current as possible with, like Rebecca said, with all the most current up-to-date materials. I want to talk a little bit about how we work with classroom discussions and group work, because it's a little bit different than what we would normally have. As an instructor, I do not stand up in front of the room and give a lecture for the day. I pretty much introduce, here's what we're going to be talking about, or sometimes the introduction is an article that I might have the students read the day before and come to class and be prepared to discuss it. Or to make sure that they've prepared for class, maybe do an article review. So we're actually doing a little bit more written work in here than a traditional math classroom, working on their writing skills, working on their communication skills. Then when we have problem situations, we like to have them work in smaller groups. As a facilitator of the course, we like to walk around, make sure everyone's having those mathematical conversations. Try not to give too many hints on how to solve it, and that's going to be the hardest thing for an instructor. You want to have guiding questions, but you don't want to tell them, what if we multiplied that? So, you know, you have to be careful, and that does take some practice because, you know, we just have it ingrained in us as math instructors. We want to help and we want to show them how to get from point A to point B. So, as an instructor, we also had to overcome a learning curve on how to work with the students. Students, they have a learning curve. This is different. They're used to having a sheet of homework or problems where the numerical answer is the thing. In our particular case, the answer is not necessarily the number. The answer is, can you explain why you think that is the answer? And so we're asking them for an explanation. We're not necessarily counting that number as the answer. So it's quite difficult for them. And I do warn my instructors at about week 2 or 3, you're going to have a revolt from your students, because now they're going to realize that, whoa, this is a lot of work. What do you mean I have to write? What do you mean I have to write a paragraph or I have to say what this number means? I don't understand that. So we're trying to show them how math is used in the real world, how we would use this in the business field. We also ask them that sometimes we require them to do a report on something. Express your answer as though you were talking to your coworkers. How would you present this at a job to your coworkers so that it's easily understood and it's thorough and thoughtful and accurate as possible? So that's early in the semester. We're later in the semester now, and I would say about week 10 we have this breakthrough. About week 10 we get these students now, and the light bulb is turned on. And they are completely thinking on a different plane now. And that's so gratifying as an instructor, because we could see the growth. We could see now they're starting to think quantitatively. And so we can see that they're asking in questions like, okay, I'm thinking this, but am I on the right track of thinking this? Because if I see this and I'm, because of this, and the explanations you're getting are far more intelligent than when they walked in the door. So I'm very grateful for the growth and how we've laid out the program. I really feel it's been successful for our students, and we're really preparing them to be global citizens out there.
I will agree, though, that there's always a handful of students who are going to complain that first couple of weeks, especially as we've started to scale the course up. Now more adjuncts are teaching it, or people who weren't on the original team. And so I got a call from one of our outlying sites. Well, this student says that their math teacher is making them write a paper. I said, yeah, that's part of the course. It's a quantitative reasoning course. They have to show their reasoning by writing a paper. We actually have them do some projects. So we have the weekly homework. But then we have these big projects where they have a couple weeks to think over it. We've done some really great projects. We like to include Excel as a tool in this course. Because again, what are they going to use in real life? It's just a wonderful tool. So some of the projects that we have done, the first project they do early in the semester, we talked about weighted grades. So they make their own weighted average grade book with Excel. But it's not just Excel and getting it to work, because we have to introduce that and teach a little bit of how to use it. It's really the paper that goes along with it. Yeah, the first project or two, I have a lot that didn't get it all. What we wanted them to do with the paper. They just wrote answers to questions that were in the project. But yeah, now that we've done a couple projects, they've gotten feedback, they're starting to understand, oh, she wants a reflection paper. I keep telling them a paper should have an introduction and a summary. It shouldn't just be, in this project, I was given grades and did this. Tell me a little bit about what you were asked to do, what you learned from the project. And so it really gives us a chance to show deeper learning with those. Another really wonderful feature of the course, and I'll let Ben talk about this because you described this really well, is how we put the content together.
Basically, the course has 3 major components in terms of mathematical material. We talk about proportional reasoning, we'll deal with statistical reasoning, and we also do finance. Those are basic things that our students need to be constructive citizens and nothing else. But as opposed to a conventional textbook where you teach perhaps 90% of a topic and then move on to the next one, you teach in a very linear fashion, we've laid out the course to spiral the curriculum. So we usually begin the semester with a little bit of proportions. And as we do proportions, we're working with real data. We're asking them to organize the data in numerical order, pick out the high and the low, and recognize, as we do proportions, we're laying out the foundations for descriptive statistics, which we will move through in the next cycle. So at each time we come back around and revisit a mathematical topic, we add another layer of enrichment to it. So the next time we hit When we actually get into descriptive statistics, we use the words that are associated with that. We want the min, we want the max, we want the median. All of the language comes in the second time through after they've developed the skills with the material. We do something similar when we get on down to linear modeling. We end the course with some linear modeling and some exponential modeling. We use absolute and relative change. We introduce those first, and when we come back around to linear and exponential modeling, we use absolute and relative change as a way of classifying the data to describe which model works best. Our students find it a little unusual. Our faculty find it very unusual because they're sometimes not allowed to complete. We're so used to teaching a topic completely and then moving to the next. It's very difficult to know that it's coming back around again.
The art of foreshadowing. And
Yes.
the first time you teach the course, you don't know it's coming later. And so sometimes I go, why didn't you explain this here? Like, oh, it's going to come back around. And I love when you see the spiral in the book. And it could be mathematical topics that spiral back around. It can also be the contextual topics that we have. So we talk about consumer price index and inflation in Unit 1. And like Ben said, it's just coming back around. Now we talked about how do you figure the inflation rate with relative change. And then next week it'll be, let's look at how the data looks for the consumer price index. Is this a linear model or an exponential model? Can we model it with Excel, with the trend line? And so again, it makes that more meaningful.
And we use the finance topics as well, the simple and compound interest. That leads into our linear and exponential growth as we talk about other things like that. It's a very delicate balance, and it takes some time to plug it in the right spot, shall we say.
So we really struggled at one point. We do a final for this course, we not do a final for this course. We've done it with, we've done it without as we've piloted it. We feel like we do 3 exams. I feel like we can just kind of spiral it into exam 3. So I warned my students back when we talk about unit conversion and dimensional analysis. Unlike other math classes, we're not done with this. I'm going to pull it up when you least expect it. We're going to be talking about normal distribution and baby weights, and I'm going to go, those are in grams, let's turn it into pounds so we all know what it's talking about. And they go, oh, I have to get out that conversion sheet again and set up those fractions again. I'm like, yes, it wasn't just this one-time thing. You have to know that for the rest of your life. You never know. I'm going to stop you in the hallway and make you convert, inches to centimeters.
Think about this. How many of you taught an algebra class where the students just hold their breath through the word problem section, realizing that, if they hold it long enough, they may never see those again. Right? And here they can't.
Right, we're one big word problem.
Yes.
Do you, because you have so much writing in your course, do you have a prerequisite for like maybe college writing?
They have to be program ready and reading now.
So you have a reading
to be in
prerequisite,
the
but
course.
not writing.
Not necessarily writing. The emphasis, we're not doing researched writing in the course. They're actually describing and interpreting what they're doing. So the researched writing skills are not as necessary. They do have to do basic grammar and sentence structure, but not a research-oriented paper. So we do the reading skills, they get those out of the way prior to taking the course. And the writing.
Our instructors are nervous about this too.
Yeah,
They say,
I
I
can
have to
imagine my
grade
students are
papers, and I'm like, well, maybe 10 points of it is based on grammar and structure of the paper. We use rubrics, and we actually in the first week explain to students, like, here's an example of a rubric. We have them do a fun little example, like how many pennies could you fill this entire wall with if you pasted pennies to the wall, and then they get together in a group, come up with an answer, communicate that answer, and then we hand them a rubric. And say, well, this is how I'm going to grade things for this class. On a scale of 1 to 5, how sophisticated was your model? On a scale of 1 to 5, how good of a job did you do communicating your ideas? And that makes it a little easier for the teacher to grade, where you can say, well, was their grammar really bad, lots of mistakes? Or
Not
was it
of grammar so
acceptable?
much as just actual
Well, but I had to,
construction,
tell my students
Yes.
on the first paper
complete
when
sentences.
some of them look things up on the internet, I said, that's okay. I didn't say you couldn't look things up on the internet, but you have to cite that. And if they haven't had an English course, I'll say, well, here's where you can go get information on how to cite something like that.
One of the things that I've done is after the first homework assignment, you do get a variety of ability levels of writing, shall I say, and I just, after a couple weeks, I just kind of gathered a few sentences, and then I did, here's some things that have appeared in homework assignments for me. And I want us to just look at these, and I want us to tell if these have been properly communicated. And so I shared about 10 of these statements. And I know some of the students, they kind of laughed, like, no, that makes absolutely no sense. And I said, yes, exactly. So that's what I'm looking for. It's like I said, and I understand sometimes you're writing very quickly, and you think that you're saying that, but go back and reread it. And remember, we're really teaching them how to communicate mathematically, not necessarily compute.
That's a big component of the numeracy, is to work and live. And the world we live in is filled with numbers. All the students claim, we're never going to use this, we're never going to see this, but, percentages, paychecks, everything we do is numbers. And we're just trying to get them to communicate effectively using this.
So, how long are these papers, and how many are they during the semester? Knowing that they give them homework, exams, and
Well,
papers.
it's a multi-assessment approach, and often the papers are not long. We're talking often a paragraph. Okay, we're occasionally a page, maybe 2 pages for some of the projects.
Okay.
And it's something they've been intimately working on. If it's a project paper, a reflection paper, a page and a half. Often we ask them for a couple meaningful sentences. That's part of the task. It's like, do a calculation, tell me what this means. Weekly.
I don't know, every homework there's something.
Every homework, there's some aspect of writing and communication.
In class, because the structure of the book is, you might lecture for a few minutes explaining a topic, then you might do some problems together in a big group, then there are sections of the book made for break out into small groups, and then, the groups can compare their answers. That's why we really need that 4th hour, and sometimes that is not enough even, depending on the levels and ability to make up of whatever class you're in.
Yes, follow up the question. Hours. I'm going to choose that concept about 4 hours.
No, and everyone always thinks, is it a lab, is it a computer lab thing? No, the class just meets for 4 hours. The full-time faculty only get paid for 3 credit hours, and the students only pay for 3 credit hours. The adjuncts get paid for their time for the 4th contact hour.
I can tell you, I pretty much use every minute of that, because when you start getting into group work, and then after the group work, you want that whole classroom discussion afterwards, because that's where the mathematics comes out in those whole class discussions. They've had a chance to kind of look at it, think about it in their groups. We've walked around, we've guided them, but now we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it as a whole, and that's where the learning takes place. And we really want to make sure we don't cut them short on that, so that's why
We really had to argue for
Yes.
that extra contact
Yes.
hour. But it's very much like teaching a science lab. If you've got faculty members colleagues that are science instructors, they need that time to allow the students to explore, and that's what we're trying to do. It takes time to activate the students when they come in, right? They don't, it's right after lunch, they're having some, you've got to wake them up, get them motivated, and it takes a little bit of time to do that. So that extra contact hour a week.
I thought you had, at the very beginning, talked about a co-requisite, or can you explain that, please?
So the students who do not test in at college level for this course, which it's not that high of an attainment to get to the 123 course, because it is kind of liberal arts math. It's not college algebra, which is one of our other pathways. But students who test in ability to benefit but not college ready, they take a co-rec class with this course. So the way that works, they're in a 123 class with regular students. It's a mix of both, and they go to an additional 3 credit hour course. I like to have a different teacher teach that. I partner with another teacher on my campus. It's a hard sell for the students because you're talking about 7 hours of math a week.
Right.
But the 080 course, our co-rec course, it's not another math class, it's a support course. So they do lots of just-in-time remediation. They maybe look over some of the homework problems. They maybe have a little work time for the projects, a little peer review or teacher review of their projects. It's not to say that that class is completely just tutoring sessions either. They do have graded components. They take skill set type quizzes for that class, for the basic math skills that they work on in that class. It's been interesting. I have a lot of students who are not in the co-rec who I think, how did you test college level? You should be in this co-rec. And then I have students in the co-rec who are acing both courses. Like, why are you in the co-rec? You totally understand this. So the placement is sometimes somewhat meaningless for the students and how they get there. We've seen some success with it. We've seen, though, some students don't want to take that many credit hours. The thing is, it's their only option for this course if they test in at that level.
And so when you have students that are in that co-requisite course, you probably have several sections of this course that you
We
teach.
get there, yeah.
Oh, are they all in lockstep in respect to where they are in the curriculum?
Each 080 is paired exclusively with
Oh, it is.
it's a specific 123. So the students that are, they're cohort
And we
with
kind
their
of
123
had to fight
groups.
for that too, because we piloted a couple things, like, well, why don't we just feed a bunch of students? Well, what happens, yeah, if the courses don't match up exactly, or the teacher teaches something slightly different in one section, and so you might have, it depends on the size of your campus. Let's say you have a Math 123 class with 24 students. 12 of them are regular college students, 12 of them are co-rec students. I, as a 123 teacher, do not treat them any differently. Sometimes I don't figure out who's who for the first couple weeks. They just get to go to that extra support course. If you do it with two teachers, boy, those teachers have to really get along. They have to talk to each other about what's going on. They have to not denigrate the other teacher and their teaching. My partner is really wonderful, though. She partnered with someone previously, and she always said, he's the hammer and I'm the honey. You know, they go to that mean 123 teacher, and then they come to me. I'm like, oh, it's okay. I'm going to explain it to you in a way that you understand. So the first couple of weeks, yeah, we talk about proportions. So the first day of class, I'm talking about ratios, and what's all the different ways we can express this ratio. And I was like, 1/2 is 2/4 is 4/8. I sent the class out. They got to my partner teacher. Go, how is she doing that? Okay, so Kristen pulled out, the prime number sieve and started talking about. They were that low, and so it's a challenge to get them up to where they need to be for our class.
And as the program instructor, I can see that maybe I don't have enough time to do a mini lesson, or when I did a mini lesson on that, I noticed that they needed a little bit more work. So I can talk to my co-rec instructor and I can say, you know what, I got a lot of them that are really low in this. Can you please, if you get a chance, can you review some of this? So that communication is key between the two courses.
So I tell my potential 080 instructors, I'm like, well, the good news is you hardly have any grading, because you're not really getting too much homework in the 080 course, or it's kind of just practice. You're grading a couple quizzes. On the other hand, you have to be able to think on the fly. You may come in with a lesson all ready to go, and they start asking about reducing fractions. You throw that lesson in the trash. I need to stop and teach them how to reduce fractions. So it's definitely a different kind of challenge.
Is there no other math prerequisite course that they take before they get into this at your college? They pop right into this one?
It was decided that the co-rec is the only option for this. There's not a standalone prereq course. So as I said, I think that's chasing a few students away who don't want to do the 7 hours at a time. We'll see what the school decides on that, because we do have other courses that might work as prerequisites for students who want to do that. But at this time, if they test at that level, they have to do the co-rec for the math course.
This may be a little off the topic, but with your 080 class, what type of motivation do you get to require the students to show up to that? So is there a grade in that class? And if there is, does that grade affect the 123 class? You see what I'm saying?
Yes. And, we had to fight. The school wanted to make the 080 a pass-fail. And we really fought that. We said, if you make it a pass-fail, that's going to tell the students it's not a real class. Because we do have graded components for that class. We do give quizzes, so they do get a letter grade in that class. Now, it's a remedial course. It does not count towards their GPA. I tell the teachers, don't let on those first couple weeks that it's not a real course, because it is a real course. They do get a grade for it. And we do have that issue of some students not attending one or the other course.
So what if they fail the co-rec class but pass the 1, 2, 3 class?
Well, the 1, 2, 3 is the college course. It's the one that counts, basically.
It trumps.
Exactly. It trumps.
Well,
That's a good
the
point.
reason I'm
They're-
asking is because
they're not
we're
allowed
having
to
to do this
fail
at our
this-
college,
yeah.
and we made that same
Exactly.
decision.
Exactly.
Where the ultimate goal is for them to pass the college class, and if they do that, having never shown up for the co-rec class, then so be
And
it.
you know, that's a small percentage. Because I hear this argument all the time. Like, that's a minority of students that's going to happen to. And so, yeah, that's what we decided to do, is to basically let it trump.
We're doing this model for the first time this semester and having abysmal results in the formerly successful 123 because they didn't have to take prereqs to get there. Did you find that happening when you switched to this co-rec model?
I found the dynamic of my 123 course changed a little bit. Like I said, I had a lot of students who were supposedly college ready who were really low the first couple semesters I piloted it too. But I did feel like the first semester or two that I taught that I had extra time in class, and now I'm not always getting to the explore activities where we do a lot of group work because I'm having to do a lot more of teaching and lecturing than I'd like to in the course. Not that I slow it down because the co-rec students, but I think the population as a whole, I just slow down on some topics a little bit to make it work. And I think the students who aren't going to make it anyway, they maybe fall out faster in this model. This is not the answer to getting higher pass rates for the course. I don't think we're going to see a huge difference of the co-rec model versus the old model as far as how many students finish the course.
I can tell you from one of my observations that when the program level and the co-rec instructor, when they are working as a cohesive group and the students know the two of you are communicating and that we're working all together and we all talk about each other in each other's class and they see us, passing each other in one right after the other's course, those are the classes that have been the most successful, where the students will stay because they know we're a team and our goal, and we kind of tell them that, our goal is to get you to pass this class. We're working to help you at all possible avenues. Let us know how we can help you. And I do notice that we have some people who, just because of scheduling or something that they maybe not as a cohesive group, those are the ones that we typically have more of the absenteeism. So it's that communication and that relationship. You become a family. And we were just talking, we find out a lot more about these students than we.
Different course.
Yes.
Much more than you want to know.
Yes. It's kind of like teaching kindergarten where they say a few things, you're like, oh, that's okay.
Too much information.
On your ACT, sorry.
How many more?
No, I wasn't giving you time now. I have a question.
Oh, please, go ahead.
They panicked because I spoke up. Is this all been done face-to-face, or has anyone tried it as an online course?
We are moving towards an online model. We're going to be developing an online version of the course in the spring term. So we'll see what kind of bumps we get with that. It's going to be a unique model.
We maybe fought against that a little bit too because the discussion and everything is so meaningful, and they told us you can think out of the box with the online. Maybe there's a component, what do they call that? A synchronized component where they have to be online at a certain hour so they can do the discussions. Because I don't think even a discussion board would work the same way as having a little group discussion. Who else?
Now, during your path, you're trying to select people based on the ACT or SAT score.
Generally, our students test in with a placement test at our college, but the first couple of semesters we did not have the remedial students in there, so they were theoretically college level, meaning either they tested in or they took one of our old pathway courses that we temporarily used as prerequisites for the course. So they had some math ability. What else? Another hand up that one.
I had just wondered, actually, when you mentioned that they see you in passing, do you tend to schedule that support class right after?
It depends. We have some that will meet before, some that will meet after, some they'll have like an hour in between gap, but we do try to schedule them as near one another. I mean, at my campus we do, it's just how our scheduling works. because it just seems like it, they're thinking mathematically, like, you know, maybe one class revved them up for the next class. And so now they've got the engine running, and now, you know, we can continue to think about this at the next level, or come back and rethink about what we just heard in the 123 course. So we purposely try to keep them close.
That's almost like a 3.5-hour block of math.
Almost, yes.
But that's where the change of instructor comes in handy, right?
Yes.
Because students tend to, I don't care what you do, how entertaining you are, after 2 hours, they get tired of you.
There's pros and cons to all these different models. So my dean really argued about whether to have it before and after because of scheduling conflicts. We were going to have the remedial course that met after the 123 course instead of before. So this isn't going to work at all. Like, you can always shift it so that it feels like you're previewing for the next. It doesn't really make a difference. You'll figure it out how you're going to make it work.
Do you like having it before or after better?
I'm doing both ways this semester, so there's pros and cons to both, because my instructor has to say, well, what have you covered in this one? You know, what do I need to be aware of for that one? It can really go either way. There's good things about both of them, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. It just depends on how you're working with your partner, your co-rec partner. I think either way.
I think as a system, we've seen success with both before and after, and one of our colleagues has tried it in several different formats, and she seems to think that there's absolutely no difference in pass rates. It just depends on the communication and the parent teachers working together.
There's a few awkward days where, like, they took their Math 123 class, now you gotta get them to go to their remedial course. So we come up with some small and light activity, like take a quick survey, check in, you know, oh well, we don't have a full class that day for that, because it does seem kind of cool after they take a big math test and then send them to another math class. That's another reason in the remedial course that, you know, some people argue, well, you need to be teaching them basic math skills and testing them on that. So let's not make it double jeopardy. You know, it is hard enough for them to be in the college level math course, and then you're going to also test them in their 0 level math course. So they take skills quizzes, but they don't do huge tests in that class, because that just won't be fair to the students.
Also, we have an Excel component as part of our course. So another nice thing is one or the other course, instead of having maybe the actual materials for that day, if it works out, you can take them to the computer lab and they can practice some of what we did in class. We don't have access to a computer lab for every single one of our classes, so sometimes I just have to pick and choose things that I want to do. Otherwise, I do a live demo of the Excel. We have directions in our book how to work some of the Excel and the ways we want to do it, but it's nice then to be able to have that option for maybe the co-rec instructor to take them, now practice this, because now you're going to have some homework, or you're going to have a project that's going to come up where you're going to need to use this.
It sounds like you wrote your own book.
Yes, we did.
We did.
So that was supposed to be the point of the course. We could talk about Math 123 all day,
Yes.
though. Yeah, we wrote our own book. I will say we borrowed some things that were kind of open source to put in there. So the big challenge was when we actually wanted to publish this was us math people. We hired an English person to do our reference page for us. So the things that we did borrow, we would correctly, you know, have the copyright and citation information for it. Yeah, so for the Excel, because this was a big concern for a lot of our regions, we don't have enough computer labs for this course. You don't need a computer lab at all for this course because they have the Excel instructions, you know, right in the book with little snapshots. In my region, we're fortunate to have a teacher computer in every classroom with an overhead like this, so I can pull up, you know, the Excel program and say, this is how you highlight, this is how you click. But like Sharon says, it's nice if the 080 class can maybe have access to computers occasionally, because there's a big difference between reading it in a book, watching your teacher do it, and having you actually try it. I found with the Excel, the students are often intimidated, that some of the instructors are intimidated. We work through it so slowly in this book. It's like, Unit 1, here's a picture of a spreadsheet.
We'll try and sneak it in as much as possible. The
This
data's
is called-
formatted
yeah.
in spreadsheet form, we do screen captures and.
So this is a cell, this is a row, this is a column, and then you just slowly go. I was like, dip your toe in the pool. Because see, it's not that bad.
We
Jump
really
in.
do, and I can be honest, and I can say when we were first talking about that in that
Yeah.
sequestered room that one summer, I was thinking, there's no way my students are gonna be able to do this. And they do. And it's, they like it.
Yeah, and in every reflection paper on their projects, it's always like, you know, I thought this project was going to be impossible, but now I learned how to use Excel, or I finally figured it out, you know, how to make the formulas work. Because at one point we did this big conversion project where they're calculating how much carbon dioxide they are responsible for. You can find this online, and we kind of stole it ourselves. It sounds really complicated. It's a unit conversion. If you type the formula into Excel and then copy the cells, the spreadsheet itself, you could probably have done in 20 minutes. So they're able to do such really amazing things with this tool. I really enjoy using it.
See, just recently I took my students, I booked a computer lab to do mortgages, and we did an amortization table. And so we actually put in the formulas, you know, told them how, now we have to teach Excel what to do, and we filled it all in. And then we were talking about how could you save money, and I said, what if we did $100 extra of our payment? What would happen there? And so they put it in, they click, and then they go, wow. I mean, the power for them to see that, and you know, this calculation is being done for them almost magically in front of them, but they can actually see, and they're making those connections now. You know, why should I pay off my credit card early, or you know, why should I not pay the minimum payment? Why should I try to pay an extra $100 towards my mortgage payment? So it all ties in with their real world.
It allows them to focus on the reasoning and using the numbers to make reasonable decisions, as opposed to trying to figure out how to use their scientific calculator to do the thing 3,000 times.
So that's not to say we don't make them do, like we just did compound interest. You need to know how to do it with your calculator. You need to be able to do that on the test. But in real life, are you going to sit there with your calculator and make 100 different, you know, compound interest calculations? Or are you going to put it in Excel where it can do the calculations for you in a matter of seconds? So again, it's a real life useful tool. A lot of them tell us that too. I'm going to be able to use this now for future jobs, things like that.
You said most of your book, you use a lot of open resources. Is your book open?
It is not. In fact, you know, we applied to do this presentation months and months ago, and then right before we got approval, they said, hey, be careful, we're trying to get this copyrighted, so don't hand the book out, you know, so it can be stolen. I put a few little things, not everybody got a handout, because there's actually more people here than I expected today. But I put a couple examples in our presentation of some basic things we do in our book. It's amazing. So we started in summer 2013, asking ourselves, can we do this? You know, can we write a book of our own? We now have more material than we can use. So again, there's some confusion with new instructors where they're dying the first couple of weeks because they're trying to do every single example. I said, no, it's a textbook. You don't do every example in your calculus book or your algebra book. You're going to pick and choose the big topics in the book. The way I kind of set up this presentation was, again, how this is different than a traditional algebra class, or how it's better than our former liberal arts math class, where, you know, in a typical algebra class you have these kind of lame, made-up problems that you can tell they're so not real. Whereas we teach the ratios with actual census data that we pulled from the census. And we ask meaningful questions about the ratio of people who are under 15 to the working age. What does that mean? And then we pulled actual graphics, some really great graphs comparing different countries, and we put those up and have a great discussion with those. We weren't finding that in textbooks, or there were some textbooks with some good material, but then they had like 200 extra pages of things that we weren't going to use, so then the students are getting charged for all those extra things.
You know, the New York Times is a wonderful thing. Pick up a newspaper, pull articles out of there that have numbers, facts, and figures, and those are phenomenal resources.
And one of the things is when you know what's coming up or you know your material, it just so happened that where I live, I'm in Indiana, but I'm up near the Chicagoland area, so I get the Chicago news. And Chicago had this big governor's race going on, and they were saying that there was a statistical dead heat. We were just talking about margin of error in class. So that was the perfect article to bring in and discuss that. What are they talking about, the statistical dead heat? What does that mean? And so having them pull that information out of that article. So those are the kind of things that we try to use, things that are relevant. Why would they be saying that?
So actually, I tried a new assignment this semester. Said before each exam, anytime before each exam, you have to bring me an example of quantitative reasoning. So a newspaper article, something you saw in your textbook. Some people have brought me their electric bill, you know, because it had a little graph of their usage on it, or their mortgage bill. I'm like, I'll just white out your name, you know. And I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with that, but I have this wonderful folder of stuff that my students have given me. Now I can steal that and use it in my class for examples whenever I'm talking about something, or we built in a little bit of downtime in the course because we're not sure sometimes how long topics are going to take. So on review day, we can spend 10 minutes handing the articles around and say, have your group pick out 3 that you thought were really cool, and then stand up and tell what you found for the class. So those are some of the best examples that we've found so far. I make the students do the work because I don't have time to go looking for stuff, so they bring me great stuff.
Is this your, is this the final, is this a pre-course to a quantitative literacy class that's like required for college, or is this the final?
This is and boy, if I had it to do over again, we call it quantitative reasoning, so you're familiar with quantitative literacy. I don't love the name quantitative reasoning. When I first was on the development team, I was telling one of our English teachers about it. She said, "What's that? That calculus or something?" I'm like, "No, it's literally reasoning about quantities." If I had it to do over again, I might call it numeracy. Maybe that makes it sound too basic. It's not completely that basic. It does get them their associate's degree. It does transfer to some schools in Indiana, but I'm in Lafayette, right across the river from Purdue. Purdue's not going to accept it. Purdue is going to require that calculus track, college algebra at the very minimum. And so the first day of class, I show them our pathways and explain that to them. This will totally get your associate's degree. Purdue has to accept your associate's degree for transfer, but when you get to Purdue, this even happened to me when I transferred to Purdue. That course isn't good enough for us here. You have to take it again with us. So we do have that little caveat, but I'm sure there's lots of presentations here at Amatyc about the quantitative reasoning courses. It sounds like some of you are getting ready to build some of them. I think this is a movement. You know, it's going to take time to build and decide what's equivalent at different colleges. And we've had some success. We have a couple of universities in Indiana and now in Kentucky who will take this as a course.
Did you have a course before this, a contemporary math course, and how was it different?
So the course that it's just ending this semester is this course takes over. It's concepts in mathematics, right?
It's a survey course.
Survey. That's what the focus said, survey of mathematics. You know, I've lined up our course objectives, and a lot of them are the same. Like, we're still covering compound interest, we're still covering linear models, but we're doing it in a very student-centered, problem-based, spiral way. Because it was time to revisit that.
That was too disjointed, you know.
So we have like 3 more minutes. Maybe we'll take one more question.
What version of Office are you using, and how do you get around those sweeping changes every year?
That's been a challenge. We're using
2013, the
Yes.
college bought a site license for the entire college, so all of our students have access to Office 2013. As long as they're registered, they have the ability to download it using their own computers as well.
And all the technology works seamlessly in
And like just making that change, so
Right.
it's just like
Sometimes you have to have both ways. I've fought with a lot of students this semester to have Macs